Hi, everybody. I work for California State Parks in the United States. Really quickly about our agency, the California State Park system has over 1,000 lifeguards, and our beaches stretch from the Mexican border in the south all the way up to the border of Oregon in the very north. We cover about 300 miles, about 480 kilometers of ocean coast, and we have almost 1,000 kilometers of lakefront property. We train about 200 new lifeguards every year, and I'm going to quickly go through transformation of the way that we teach lifeguards how to rescue or how to recognize people in distress and then make a decision about whether to do something about it. So motivation, in 2017, we had the brilliant idea, somebody else had the brilliant idea, that said, hey, we should ask these people if we're doing a good job. So we did a pretty in-depth survey of our new lifeguards in addition to our lifeguard supervisors. We found out a lot of stuff, but one of the most interesting things that we found out was that, not really surprising, new lifeguards have a really hard time with this two-part process of recognizing potential people in distress, and then the second part is actually making a decision about whether to do something about that. We know that with experience, lifeguards get much better at this. Dr. Smith, Dr. Timpton, thank you for your work in this area. And there's been recent work recent thought processes about this transition from an analytical decision-making process, really burdensome, right? Like a new lifeguard is just freaked out watching the water, scared and thinking a lot, to a more intuitive, natural approach where someone can see something and just have this feeling and know that that's going to be a problem in 5 minutes and they should go do something about that now. At this point, we realized that our existing education in this area was just not cutting it, and it was not adequately preparing people for the job. We used to teach rescue recognition, and what that consisted of was us showing pictures like this of, yeah, that guy's in trouble, or this, that's a rip current, you should do something about that, or this, yeah, all those people are about to die, you should do something about that. So when we sat down and started thinking about this a little bit more intentionally, we said, hey, we shouldn't be teaching people to recognize this. We should be teaching people to recognize 5 or 10 steps before this so they can go talk to them before. The way that we're doing this is not really working. So our main objective here was to come up with some sort of framework where we could communicate interacting elements of risk and encourage appropriate early intervention so we can aid that risk assessment decision-making process. So we went to the previous literature. The drowning timeline and the drowning chain of survival were really helpful for us, but unquestionably the most advanced work in this area has been from Jonathan Weber and Billy Doyle with the Sentinel system. Jonathan, you can wave. If you want to know more about this, ask him. It's phenomenal work. Okay, so very quickly over the next couple minutes, I'm going to present the new way that we are teaching lifeguards in like 8 minutes. This is normally a 2-hour block with several activities interacted, so I'm going to go fast. So the first thing we do is we convince our new lifeguards that their job is more than a fancy game of fetch, right? We, as lifeguards, are required to be experts, and we really want you to think, and then we need you to make a decision, right? Most people in the general public just think that we are still playing fetch. That's not always the case. So we start with hazards, and we break beach hazards into 2 distinct areas to start to build these schemas so new lifeguards can start to file away this information in categories. The first is beach conditions. The second is the physical environment. We define beach conditions as kind of the state of weather and ocean conditions that have the potential to change throughout the day. And we establish the physical environment as aspects of the patrol area that generally are not going to change. So our teaching cheat sheet, in the morning, you can look up beach conditions on your phone, whether it's like a weather app or a surf app. For the physical environment, these are things that you would have to see a picture of the beach, or you would have to look at a map or something like that. So beach conditions, what are things at the beach that could be a hazard, that could get people into trouble? Yell them out. Rip currents, what else? Yell them out. Sure, some marine life. Tides, waves, wind. Yeah, weather, right? So these are things that are changing. What about in the physical environment? Something that's not going to change. Something like the topography of the beach, a steep drop-off, rocks, piers, river mouths, right? These things are not going to change. So, we start to think through these hazards, but in order to have a problem, you need people. So here's where we introduce risk and these person factors. For ease, we're going to break person factors into two groups. The first is individual characteristics, and the second is behavior. So individual characteristics, demographic characteristics or knowledge level that may be associated with greater risk. So these, the cheat sheet, these are the things that people come to the beach with, and you as the lifeguard cannot change. Okay, so very quickly, age extremes, weight extremes, non-swimming ability, lack of ocean knowledge and experience. And I have been trying my whole life to read minds, and I can't do it yet. So instead, we teach these clues for lack of ocean experience, like being an obvious tourist, right? Using your equipment incorrectly, wetsuit zipped up, not zipped up, on backwards. Using the wrong equipment, right? So like the kid with goggles, it's going to go catch good waves. Incorrect swimming attire, right? So all these things we would, classify as individual characteristics. I, as the lifeguard, can't run down to a 3-year-old, 4-year-old kid and say, hey kid, grow up. You need to grow up if you want to go out there, right? The second one is behavior. All the dumb things that people do that you as a lifeguard potentially can't stop. Hey, don't jump off the pier. It's dangerous. Hey, don't get passed out drunk and go face down in the sand and then get in the water. The selfie epidemic is really affecting us right now, and it sounds like it's affecting you. You see this guy do this once, and he goes back up the beach to do it again. You should go down and say, hey, bro, don't do that, right? Peer pressure. So here's all the boys lining up to go out, but Johnny's cousin is here from Kansas. Yeah, right. That's the peer pressure. Okay, so we have behavior. The last piece of this is what we call lifeguard resources. And the way that we like to explain this is like the antidote. You as the lifeguard, you're the medicine, right? So what are kind of the availability and type of rescue resources that are available to you that might affect your response time as well? So we kind of have obviously a much more nuanced discussion about this, but Goat Rock State Beach in Sonoma, California, one of the most dangerous beaches in the state. One lifeguard patrols about 50 kilometers of coast by himself versus this situation, Southern California, 4 lifeguards per tower, right? Those different environments are going to alter the level of risk of somebody at the beach. So we have this kind of risk pedal, and we want you to start thinking about the way that these different things are going to interact with each other to change someone's level of risk. So beach conditions, 1 meter surf, physical environment, sandy beach, person factors, local expert surfer, no problem. Those same beach and physical environments, tourist, that might change things for that person's risk level, right? Okay, the second part of this. So you have your risk level on the left. The top part is going to go from no distress all the way to drowning. The bottom section here is going to be your lifeguard actions. So again, the next part of this, when we're teaching people, is to walk through this slowly and have more nuanced discussion and debate to get some reactions. So we start with somebody that's in no distress, but at some level of risk, because if you're at the beach, you are at risk. And we would talk about active surveillance, human factors, errors, intentional blindness, a lot of the work that Jonathan and Billy Doyle have done, scanning techniques, that sort of thing. We're going to move on to, as someone's risk goes up, you're going to have to make a decision of, should I leave my post and go talk to this person? If you do it early, it's going to be a preventative contact, and we classify preventative contacts in 2 really broad areas. The first is a general contact. That is just providing general safety information to the family that walks by the lifeguard tower. The second is a specific contact where the lifeguard is going to actually intervene in a specific situation at a specific point in time and provide explicit instructions on how that person can get better. So general contact, hey guys, welcome to the beach. Want to let you know there's large surf today. I strongly recommend that you stay in knee-deep water. Specific contact, hey kid, stand up. You're in a rip current, walk to shore, go down and swim in front of Tower 5. Okay, so we kind of break those apart so they can understand. The next, at this stage, we would start to talk about, what a person in distress looks like. And when we zoom out, our previous education block used to fit right here. We used to only focus on people in distress. These are the classic instinctive drowning response and a lot of the other stuff that's written in textbooks. So at this point, we would go over that. And then we start to talk about interventions, okay? For the new lifeguards, we're not really drilling into their heads the difference between a non-emergent rescue or an assist, an emergent rescue, and immediate rescue. But at this point, we will start to have a conversation about, hey, a lot of the times you're going to swim out, and the person's probably going to be fine, and you're going to assist them back to shore, right? We call that, a non-emergent rescue or an assist. There are other times where you are going to swim out, and that person is seconds away from having serious problems, an emergent rescue where you're going to have backup. If you wait and you don't do anything, that person will go into a drowning response or an immediate distress situation, which we would have an immediate rescue where there's going to be a multi-system response, boats, people are going to be preparing for some sort of resuscitation scenario out the back. So again, remember that this is very, very fast. This graphic is explained in detail in multiple sessions over several hours. But this is it altogether. A little bit of discussion, and remember, we're trying to speed up that process from that analytical decision making to a more intuitive response. And a really nice paper by Spielman and Tipton and Smith and Billy Doyle, Rachel Griffiths, talks about providing representative cases or rescue scripts. So once the new students have learned this graphic, the way that we start to operationalize it for them is we come up with rescue scenarios for them. We have everybody with their own piece of paper mark where they think the person is, then they debate it. So we would give them the beach conditions, we would give them physical environment, we would say you're on a busy beach that's lifeguarded, you have multiple people helping you, and this person is a tourist, non-swimmer, blah, 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 blah. What do you think about the situation? We'll discuss it. And then we'll go back and we will tweak one of those risk elements and say, hey, does that change your decision making? Does that change the person's risk level? Are you going to intervene or going not to intervene on, based on this new information? So we see this as an advance in the way that we're talking about this topic. There's a lot of work left to be done to evaluate if it's actually better. A lot of the instructor cadre and our training staff think that this is a more nuanced approach besides just showing big pictures of rip currents and people, drowning. But yeah, we would really like to figure out a way to evaluate if this is actually improving or speeding up that process. So with that, thank you very much. I really would like to recognize Mike Tipton, Jonathan Weber, Andrew Schmidt for helping me kind of think through some of these things and our training staff as we came up with this. So thank you very much. Any questions?